Welcome back, guys. Um, know it's been a while you heard from me since you heard from me, but that again is by design. Uh, I had to collect my thoughts on what's been happening the last week. Uh, I don't know how familiar some of you guys are, but a lot has been shaking with Microsoft. Of course, we're in what I like to call convention season, where a lot of companies are having presentations, conventions, etc., concerning the wares that they're going to have coming out this year and within the next year beyond the calendar. So from about April 2025 to April, May 2026. The big thing with Microsoft right now, or at least amongst the Microsoft fandom, is the issue of going back to being exclusive. You have people who are on the side of, yeah, Microsoft needs to go back fully exclusive. There is putting their games on PlayStation has ruined the brand, the branding of Xbox. It has sullied the name. It has made Xbox look as if though it's a device or a feature, a set of devices that are not needed in order to access Xbox games. And I can see the argument of that, but of course, if you know this channel, then you know how I feel about exclusivity. I don't give a damn. I truly don't. I don't care. Uh, and it's mainly because of how bad things are now. You got people that I respect, like a Clobrow, and even to an extent like King David, right? That will tell you that, King David has come out and admit, I was being a good soldier. His words, not mine. I went along with whatever Phil Dominus Maximus Aurelius, the first of his name, I had to do the whole thing out of respect. Was going with. And I was doing with what Queen Sarah Bond was going with, and I feel that because King is doing a thing. You know what I'm saying? He's serious about this. You know, the being the leader of the Xbox fandom. You know, is it toxic? Yes, but if you gonna hunt monsters, you gotta be one, I suppose. And he's going against grifters, so he's got to be a grifter himself. I respect that, and I respect that because at the end of the day, he's the only motherfucker that's being honest about what's going on. He's the only motherfucker that's being honest and straight up about it. And to his credit, when they do something stupid, and by they I mean Xbox, he calls the shit out. He's the only one that's honest and straight up about it. Only one. But if I'm being, honest, I think things were laid down for people on the information level, which I will always give Phil Spencer credit for. Anytime there was a meteor heading toward Xbox, Phil Spencer stood in front of that shit. It was something he needed to get ahead of. Okay, let me go out there and talk to people and tell them why this is happening, and they can call me a motherfucker or a liar. I don't care. And I think it eventually got to him, which is why he left prematurely, on top of other things. Phil Spencer told y'all, we lost the worst generation to lose. From 2013 up until now, barring Steam, right, which is a whole nother monster of itself, the most likely place you have a large digital library of games, on average, because I have a larger digital library on Xbox, believe it or not. Most people on average, most of their digital library is probably on PlayStation. I would, let's lowball it and say 60%. Nintendo Switch guys, I'm pretty sure there's people with a decent digital library on there, but Nintendo Switch honestly is probably like one of the few places where people still collect physical copies of games. PlayStation will be second, and Xbox will be a distant third because there are games that come out on Xbox that don't even have physical copies. Right? Um, You can't honestly sit here and look at what has happened the last 2 or 3 years and say that it would be wise for Microsoft to go back to full exclusivity. It wouldn't. VG Fight Schools has already kind of touched on this, how it would be detrimental to the jobs of the people that Microsoft does still employ. Remember, they fired 9,000 people, and they still got all of these studios open. You want to see them close all those studios? Go fully exclusive again. Because here's the thing, right? You got guys like Crowbrow, who I respect the hell out of. I love Crowbrow's work. I'm not trying to bag on Crowbrow. He's a much better content creator I am, right? But I'm giving my opinion, so this is my opinion. Guys like Crowbrow and the ilk will sit here and scream, well, putting games on PlayStation is ruining the brand recognition of Xbox. And while there's definitely a legitimate case of that, I ask you two questions. The first one kind of snarky, and you can feel however you want to feel about it, but what the fuck is the brand recognition of Xbox at this point anyway? What is it? See, here's the real problem, right? Outside of what Phil said, you lost the worst generation to lose. You didn't have teeth, right? When Sony was doing all of that bullshit, buying games, giving developers checks, don't put this on Xbox. When they were doing all that, that's when you should have fought. But, Phil Spencer didn't fight that way. He was like, oh, you want the eggs exclusive? Well, I'm going to buy the farm. Phil Spencer's aggression was passive. Arsha's, for the small sample size we have of Arsha and her energy as the head of Xbox, with Matt Booty behind her, and we already talked about Matt Booty. She seems more actively aggressive. Like time will tell, but it seems like she's more approaching this idea of being in your face. Like, this is the first time in the history of the Xbox brand that I can remember, or at least in a very long time, where rumors are coming out about shit, and before anybody can actually get a solidified thought of, okay, well, this must be happening, there's a video or some kind of information posted saying, no, we're not doing that. Case in point, the whole Fable thing. People thought Fable, there was a rumor either earlier this week or late last week, or last week. Forgive me, I'm older, so time kind of is meshing together. That Fable was going to miss this year, and like out of nowhere, like 2 days after I saw that rumor, it was like, no, we still coming out this year. Phil Spencer's Xbox wouldn't have did that. No knock on him, but Phil Spencer's Xbox wouldn't have did that. I need to see one or two more things to confirm what I thought about this Xbox regime and Matt Booty in particular, and him having Asha Sharma's ear. If I see those one or two things, then that's a whole nother video. We got to have a discussion about that, because if you didn't like Microsoft after they bought Activision Bethesda, you really ain't going to like them now. And I'm talking in particular to people who don't like the brand of Xbox. Because Matt Booty about to do some shit. If how they're crushing narratives before they become beliefs, if how they're approaching this very aggressive, Xbox is, like, think about it. They've had a presentation every month since February. They're not bullshitting. Right? And I believe they're going to have a presentation next month in May. And we know they're going to have their annual one in June on the 7th. They are not bullshitting about being front and center of the idea, we got games coming and you going to want this shit. Now, whether that plays out as far as the quality of those games, that's a whole nother story altogether. As a matter of fact, it's subjective, so we don't need to get into that. But this is the most aggressive I've ever seen Xbox be. They're crushing narratives / rumors. They're being more upfront about their intentions. My whole issue with like the Clobrows and even King David and a couple other people saying, yeah, bring back exclusivity. Look at Sony and look at Xbox. Let's just be clear. You're not going to hit 90 million Xboxes sold. Especially if this new Xbox is a hybrid PC / console and it's probably going to be 14. You're not hitting those PlayStation numbers. That shit's not happening. What you can say or do is say that we're not closing down studios and we're still making games at a high click. Case in point, there are no Bluepoint games that are on PC. There are no Bluepoint games that are on Xbox. The Bluepoint games that were made stayed on PlayStation, and Bluepoint is closed. On the other hand, and this is the Gipper, right? And keep in mind, Bluepoint mostly made remakes, nothing original, except for the rumored God of War multiplayer game they were making, which God knows why the hell that was even a thing, because that weird ass God of War game that was multiplayer on PlayStation 3 worked out so well. You're telling me that Bluepoint, who's on PlayStation, 90-something million units sold, even though that shit's a lie. They made all these high-quality games that were exclusive to PlayStation, and they're dead. They no longer exist, right? The team was Compulsion Games, South of Midnight. What would you reckon the sales numbers are? Not the accolades, because South of Midnight got a lot of accolades. What would we reckon the sales numbers are for South of Midnight? Now keep in mind, we can sit here and say, well, the budget's probably on the low end. It is a AA game. But if you look at the art and the music that went into that game, I would say that was probably a good portion of the budget. And that budget was low, but not that damn low. That game did not sell like gangbusters. When Microsoft fired all them motherfuckers like 4 or 5 months ago, I ain't seen nobody from Compulsion get fired. So Compulsion still exists. And all they've made in the last few years is really just We Happy Few. And that was damn near 10 years ago now, I think. And South of Midnight. But they still exist. I remember Gaz making a joke about it, like, how's nobody from Compulsion getting fired? Because, one, the budget of the game wasn't too high. Two, they was going to put that motherfucker everywhere in the first place. They didn't do this dumb shit that Sony's doing. Oh, we'll put it on PC eventually. No, that shit was just there. And on Steam, it has, from what I remember, it has a lot of its best user ratings. The user ratings for South of Midnight on Steam are pretty damn good. And see, that's my point. PlayStation selling more consoles, that's cool, even though you sell them shits at a loss. They not selling games. Selling games is what keeps game development studios open. Bluepoint, a high quality game development studio, no longer exists because Sony just wouldn't let them put Dark Souls 1, or Demon Souls rather, on PC. You want to create that scenario for Xbox. And I know Clobrow may not be necessarily talking about not putting shit on PC. I present a happy, what I believe is a middle ground. Right? Some stuff doesn't need to go to PlayStation. I'll give anybody that argument. There was no point in putting the Outer Worlds 2 on PlayStation. Not at launch. Not at launch. Because at the end of the day, it didn't move like that on the original release anyway. It took a while for it to catch momentum. And it was mostly regarded as, oh, this is an okay RPG. It's not a world beater or anything, but it's an okay RPG. I beat the game. I enjoyed it. Outer Worlds 2, first of all, to be fair, Microsoft, y'all fucked that game anyway. Because you, for like 8 months, you was saying it was an $80 game. Then you switched up and said, no, it's going to be $70. Most people had checked out on the shit by then. The few people that were interested in it was like, no, fuck it at that point. Y'all did that to that game. But for the Outer Worlds 2, you should have stagnated that game's release the way you did Avoweds. Right? Or the way you did Starfields. Make them wait 2 or 3 years for that shit. If you're going to release it. And really, that's what you should be doing with Fable. You're kind of doing it with Forza Horizon 6, right? That game's not coming out to what, 3 to 6 months after it comes out on Xbox? Because they said it's coming out this year. I doubt they're going to put it out in November. I doubt a lot of shit comes out in November not named GTA, unless it's a Nintendo game. So my guess is December. Maybe early January of next year, you'll get Forza Horizon 6 on PlayStation. That's what you need to start doing. If you absolutely must test the waters and see if you can sell a game on PlayStation, unless it's a live service game, wherein I believe, okay, yeah, maybe the launch window should either be day and date or within 6 months to a year. All that other shit, make them wait 3 years. Starve them. That's what you should do. But cutting off the legs on that customer base is fucking stupid. And I will say this. I do agree that putting Halo on PlayStation is wild as fuck. Like, do it if you think you can make the money off of it. I really don't. I like that particular Halo game. I think your ceiling is maybe 2 million units. One, Halo ain't Halo no more as far as popularity, right? 2, there's no multiplayer in the shit. 3, if motherfuckers cared about Halo, they'd have a PC or an Xbox. Like, Gears selling millions surprised me because it's like, bro, if motherfuckers wanted Gears, they have a PlayStation, an Xbox or a PC. You know what I'm saying? Like, Fable. I know that's scheduled to come to PS5, but if motherfuckers wanted Fable, they'd have bought an Xbox or a PC by now. You see what I'm saying? Like, your pillars shouldn't be touching that shit. But we're here now, right? But I ain't gonna lie to you. Elder Scrolls 6, y'all need to keep that shit. Fallout 5, y'all need to starve them motherfuckers. Because here's the thing. Sony's doing all of this goofy shit, allegedly, because they still haven't confirmed anything, to keep games from even coming to PC at this point. Like, Sony, and there's a lot to be said about that, right? So, contextually speaking, that makes Sony a fucked up company. Because you're willing to sacrifice people's jobs and ability to work just to say, well, we didn't give Xbox any games. That's a level of dedication. That, again, is seppuku. That's a level of dedication to the act, the portrayal of PlayStation being the place to play game. That's a level of dedication to that is commendable, but it's also like psychotic. Because you're closing down studios, you're barely putting out a game every year. Like that Sorrow shit, it might do well, it might not. You know, I know it wasn't outdoing motherfucking Starfield. Starfield sold what, a couple 100,000 100,000 and so copies. Sorrows wasn't outdoing that. I don't know, man. This is a weird time. But Microsoft and Asha Sharma in particular has some very interesting decisions to make. At this point, though, if you've committed to putting Fable, Halo, Forza's already on there, and Gears is already on there, on PlayStation, it's time to come up with new pillars. Right? It's time to come up with new pillars, new standards for Xbox. And that can either be something that already exists, or that could be something that you are going to make. Honestly, I say make the Elder Scrolls a pillar. That's your shit. Make the Elder Scrolls a pillar of Xbox. The shit's already always ran better on Xbox anyway, as far as consoles. Make the Elder Scrolls a pillar. Make Fallout a pillar. You don't get those unless you got an Xbox. You got a backlog of stuff. Prototype. Make the next prototype a pillar. Killer Instinct at this point is probably about the only thing that's going to be an Xbox pillar, which is crazy because that's a Nintendo game from the 90s. Like, we are in the weirdest time ever in gaming history, bro. This shit is so weird. It's exciting, but it's weird. And I can imagine for a lot of the developers it's scary because you don't know if you're going to have a job the next minute or not. I will say that I think Microsoft has the ball fully in their court as far as like what you want to do is kind of going to dictate how the rest of this shit flows from here on out. Because I think even Sony, in being very silent about committing to the idea that they are abandoning PC and PC ports, Sony's scared shitless. They know that they really can't afford to do that. At least when it comes to PC. They know they're going to have to put them games somewhere else. They know this. Right? They know this. They don't assume it. They know it. The numbers are speaking loud and clear. But Sony's not going to put Uncharted on Xbox. Even though they would probably make a shitload of money doing it. Sony's not even going to put Spider-Man on Xbox. And that's not even really theirs, right? It's theirs so far as they published it, they made it. But that IP is, hook or crook Disney's. But, we shall see, man. Interesting times. But, like, again, I understand from an old school council ward perspective where Claude Brow and a lot of those other guys are going. But, honestly, financially, that shit don't make sense. It don't make sense. It would be a death sentence. And yeah, Microsoft may have lost the allure of, well, do you need an Xbox? But hell, they turned the Xbox into a PC anyway. If the PC ends up getting, if Windows operating systems ends up getting emulators and let me play my Xbox games, what the fuck are we even talking about anymore? It doesn't matter, right? If the thing come out at the Helix come out at $1,400, let's just be serious. Who's buying that shit in bulk? It's a few people that's going to be able to buy that in gaming. They're going to have to sell it as, oh, it's also a PC. And lastly, Sony got their identity. Sony ain't got no damn games. They went from having all the games to none of the games. They got to cut checks just to hope they can get exclusives. And the game you see in front of you, they tried and it didn't even work. So, there is no right answer to this shit. But it's going to have to be an answer. It's going to have to be an answer. We'll find out, hopefully, within the next few months. Big things coming. Catch you guys in the next video.